Anyone really think I'd let my boyfriend lose against that redneck Josh Allen? Not a chance. I forced the NFL to screw the Bills over because Roger Goodell is a slave to the Swifties. Anyways, I'm going to give him a call and remind him who he works for.
Hello, this is NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Who's calling me?
Roger, it's Tay-Tay. How are you doing, my little manslave?
Oh, no, not that Satan-worshipping donkey witch Taylor Swift. Hey, Taylor, thanks for calling. I was just on the phone with Ron Torbert, the head referee for the Super Bowl. He's got your instructions loud and clear. We guarantee that the Eagles will lose. So just please don't hurt me. I heard what you did to Brandon.
Don't worry, Roger. I won't hurt you as long as you guarantee the Super Bowl for Travis. He did a great job rigging the AFC Championship game, especially with that fourth down where you gave Josh Allen a bad spot, and that Xavier Worthy catch that clearly hit the ground. Anyways, you did well, Roger. You good little boy. But just remember, you work for me, and you know what will happen if you don't do the same thing next week.
All right, Taylor, understood. That lady scares me.
Such a good little man, boy. Live from Times Square, it's that Kevin.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. With Mike Gonzales, Fred Fleitz, Prisha Mosley, and Frank Morano. A touch of wellness with Jane Anne Banyra. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, The Babylon Bee, and the Holderness Family. And Lainey Wilson for the fourth year in a row in the spotlight. And now from Times Square, a man who was qualified to be the FAA administrator in the previous administration. From Times Square, here's the
Gonna have to be careful about that one, Dave. It's not true. It was not true. And it brings us to really a very sad reality tonight, friends, that in our nation's capital, 67 people died that most likely didn't need to. I felt bad for the new Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Duffy, this week. I felt bad for the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Hegseth, because first day on the job, first week on the job, they walk into a mess that was left for us by the last administration. Take a listen to how President Trump dealt with it when he was at the podium this week.
How badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation. He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity.
And that's the absolute God's honest truth. Our transportation department under the previous administration was a disaster, unmitigated. Trains falling off tracks, planes crashing, things colliding, and people being ignored. Once you had some of these disasters occur, you wouldn't have Secretary Buttigieg show up in some cases at all. In other cases, it would be weeks or months afterwards. And for whatever the previous administration said it was doing, wanted to be about, claimed it was trying to do for the welfare of the American people, it wasn't doing us any favors because the focus wasn't on doing the job. The focus was how many black people, gay people, lesbian people, Asian people. What's the iconography of the department? How are we seeing who is represented by what group where? And all you have to know that that's true is to look at what kind of incredible candidates they put forward for nomination on some of the most important jobs possible. In 2023, there was an FAA administrator position that was open. Did you see the person that Biden put forward?
You ever flown a plane?
Thank you for the question, Senator. No, I have never flown a plane.
So you weren't a military pilot or a commercial airline pilot?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for an airline?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked as an air traffic controller?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for a company that manufactures airplanes?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for a company that fixes airplanes?
No, Senator.
FAA administrator is a specialized position. I'm not qualified to be FAA administrator. I have no idea how to fly a plane. No one in their right mind would put me in charge of aviation safety because I don't have that experience. I suspect most of the members of this committee are in a similar position. The American people, when they think about aviation safety, when they think about, I played in this committee, a Southwest Airlines and FedEx plane almost colliding at Austin's airport. They want an FAA administrator who knows why those planes crash and knows how to fix it to keep them safe. And with all respect, Mr. Washington, it gives no comfort to the flying public that their pilot might be a transgendered witch, but doesn't actually know how to prevent the plane from crashing into the ground and killing them. I believe your record is woefully lacking. And in fact, you have zero aviation safety experience.
I feel remarkably terrible for the outcome of what we are seeing take place right in front of us. Because the good people that are trying to do the best they can for the last 4 years have had utter incompetence over them. And that's why there is so much work to be done, so much on offense that must be attended to. We cannot just for, kicks and giggles, just sit back on our haunches and say, well, it's everything's going to be fine. It's our turn now. No, we have to be defeating the darkness at every turn. That's what everyone that's even hoping for the better outcome of America has to be about. You cannot have completely incompetent transgendered witches running the FAA. Now, to Mr. Washington's credit that Mr. Cruz was just questioning there, he withdrew from the nomination. Thank goodness he did not become the FAA administrator. But this is the kind of garbage that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that must be stopped, must be changed. This is unacceptable on every single level. And that's why I'm really thankful for the good people that are willing to put themselves forward, like the Pete Hegseths of the world, who says, unacceptable, never to happen again, so help me God.
It is a tough way to start, and we've tried to lean forward and be as transparent as possible while also respecting, of course, the families of those affected, the 64 on top of that in that civilian airline, and then the 3 soldiers who have been notified. The next of kin have been notified, and we're being careful about that as well. Yeah, you got 3 Blackhawk pilots on effectively an annual night qualification run. So there's a corridor there that is utilized near Reagan National Airport that the military uses for exercises that are routine. But as you know, guys, nothing is routine in the military, whether it involves a training exercise or real world. In this particular case, they were qualifying on a night flight, which included night vision goggles. Now, we don't know is whether the goggles were engaged or up. And anyone that's been in the military knows you might use them, you might flip them up while flying. But if the qualification was a night flight, they could have been used. You have a lot of ambient light, a lot of things happening around Reagan. There can be depth perception problems. Again, that's speculation. Our investigation will tell us more.
So much work to do, friends. So much work. And we can't take a day off. Thankfully, our president's not going to take a day off, and he's not going to let our cabinet take a day off. The welfare of people going forward is too important to have someone who calls a lid at 3 p.m. and puts up completely unqualified people to lead us. Different game in town now, baby. Different game in town. We've got a huge show straight ahead for you. Breaking news from Mike Gonzales, Fred Fleitz, Prisha Mosley, and Frank Morano. We'll also get into a little bit of wellness in hour 2 and lots of sketch comedy, along with Lainey Wilson. Stay with us. It's That Kevin Show. McCullough. Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. All things related to the show, all my social media, everything there. thatkevinshow@gmail.com to email the show. It's just That Kevin Show. I've even got it on the coffee mugs. So, it's I won't forget it that way. It's easy. Speaking of things I wish we could forget, the the legacy that DEI left for us in many different elements of society. And even though the Trump administration is starting to systematically remove DEI from the government, it still has its roots firmly ensconced in different sections of society. I was reading just this morning that the huge super chain Costco, coast to coast, has doubled down on their DEI and their in their HR hiring practices and so forth. So I thought, why not talk to somebody about just that? From the Heritage Foundation, Mike Gonzales joins us. He's written about this in his books, and he talks about it internationally. He's also a national security guy and can talk about interactions with the State Department and us on other levels. And Mike, I guess before we get to the DEI thing, welcome, first of all. Let me ask you, Marco Rubio's been on the job for all of like 3 or 4 days now, and we've literally found out that we had Americans being held hostages in different countries around the world that we didn't know about until he got there. Yeah, how's that possible?
Because we had an administration, and by that I mean the Biden-Harris administration, that was AWOL. We had an administration that did not care about the national security and the national interest, above all, of the United States. It pursued its policies. It wanted foreign countries to pursue the same kind of insanity on a racial and sexual basis that the woke pursue here in the United States. And we lost a lot of friends that way. And we did things that were inimical to our national interests. So it's not surprising at all that that they lost count of our hostages. It's not like the Biden administration ever spoke about the hostages it knew that existed in Gaza. When did you hear the Biden administration saying this is a priority for us, getting these hostages out of Gaza? I didn't hear it once.
The only time you heard about that, in all fairness, was when President Trump would bring it up and he would say, if they're not out by the time I'm in office, they'll be hell to pay.
That's right. And that's the reason we had such a rush to get a deal done as the hours waned on the not lamented Biden administration.
Right. No, it's and they tried to take credit for it, and everybody was like, look, if it weren't for Trump's people, we wouldn't have gotten this done. And you know what? The work's not over there. We've still got people that we gotta make sure get home.
Right.
Well, okay, so that sets up this conversation very well then, because I think that what Hegseth's going to find at DOD, what Rubio's finding out at Department of State, what Bondi's certainly going to walk into over at DOJ, you have this kind of infection of DEI, and it's not just a checkbox policy. It's not just, did you interview X number of people? It's not even, you can't even quantify it like that. It's a worldview. It's a values system that does not champion in any way meritocracy or rewarding people based on what they've earned, how they've gone about producing excellence in their field. So you've written a lot on this. You speak a lot about it. First of all, how did America become a place where DEI was something we even entertained? We were a meritocracy from the beginning. This has always been part of our DNA to be focused on excellence and doing our best. How did it set in so strongly in just 4 years?
So Kevin, how much time do you have? Yeah, I'm glad that you talk about the cultural part of this, because before we get into the nitty-gritty of what the executive orders do, you have to think of DEI as kind of the operating system of this culturally Marxist critical theories that say America is based on genocide, America is an awful place, America is systemically oppressive, systemically racist, and its guiding principle is white supremacy, and therefore all of America needs to be, all these institutions has to be a complete and wholesale change of everything American, and we need to put in a new paradigm, a new hegemony, a new way of looking at America. And that really basically was what DEI did. The DEI trainings reminded many of us of the struggle sessions that Mao Zedong had in China during the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s. So it was this kind of indoctrination, this kind of brainwashing that they attempted. And then they said, when we called them out on it and said, look, you're doing this, they would say, are you really seriously against diversity, equity, and inclusion? This is about bringing in marginalized groups, bringing into the American system. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, is now saying that this is a meritocracy. This, Kevin, this is all a lie. A lie. And if you look at the people who actually write about this, the pioneers of critical race theory, they denounce the meritocracy. They say that it's based on qualifications that were never good, that the qualities that the American meritocracy system rewards are not good qualifications, are not good traits, and we need to change the thinking. So this is a very fundamental thing. I must say that the Trump team, what Trump has done in his first week is of a surprising sophistication. They have really understood it, and they have gone in there and tried to excise it like a surgeon does to a cancer patient. This is not Trump 1.0. This is not like any administration that we have seen. This is Trump 2.0. In his first day, he issues 22 EOs, executive orders. George W. Bush did not issue a single one in his first day in the first term, not a single one in his first day of the second term. Obama issues 2 his first term, issues 0 in his second term. Trump's 22 EOs are a record in our history.
Well, and it's because of how badly things went so quickly under the last group. I think I've gotten into a little bit of trouble for saying this, not from the president, but from some of his supporters. But I think that the time in the wilderness for President Trump was not completely lost. I know that he would have rather have stayed in office, and that we would have saved a lot of people a lot of pain, potentially, if he had been there. But I think that by him having to kind of sit on the sideline and watch, he already had kind of documented the downfall of America over the last couple of generations, and he'd been watching it and kind of warning people about it. You go back and you look at his time on Oprah and Donahue and some of those other shows that he did when he was much younger. He was talking about the same stuff that he just got elected on, but it wasn't as developed at that point. It hadn't gotten this bad. In the last 4 years, it got really bad really fast, and I think he basically just said, it's up to me to go in there and fix it, and I'm only going to have 4 years, really only 2 years guaranteed. Got to get in there and get it done. We're speaking with Mike Gonzales of the Heritage Foundation. Coming right back after a quick break. Got to pay some bills.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. It's Times Square, where we come from, and Fred Fleitz is back with us from the America First Policy Institute. No, they didn't disappear. They're still around. They're still fighting the good fight. There's lots of stuff to be done. And Fred, I don't think a lot of people know just how influential a lot of you guys were in terms of those executive orders, the hundreds of them that were ready to go on day one. I know that a lot of the elbow grease came from AFPI.
Well, there were many good people in the MAGA world that did a lot to get ready. We played a significant role, and we're just proud of serving our country. We did it silently. I'm not going to get into exactly what I was working on, but we were part of the effort. But it was a team effort of many good organizations.
Well, and I'm glad that you were there, and I'm glad that there was that much forethought. I think one of the things that I think irritates people about companies or organizations is if they lack strong leadership, then you generally lack mission. Like, what are you supposed to accomplish if you don't know why you're there? And I think that the one thing that Trump can be identified with is that he defines his mission, he knows his mission, he knows what he wants to get done, and he wants people on the team that are going to help him get it done. And the entire effort, even during the transition of, the appointments and who he brought in and exactly when the executive orders were going to be released and so forth, like it's obvious that this government is doing things on purpose. They're not waiting for things to happen and react. They're initiating what they want to see happen. And I think that's healthy for the world.
They're well-written executive orders. They've been worked on. Some of them worked on for over a year. They've been reviewed by attorneys. And I think they're going to withstand the many legal challenges that we know are coming against these orders. And it's a way to basically fight the Democrats at their own game. They do this all the time with Democratic presidents. And Joe Biden thought he was so smart by signing a couple dozen executive orders when he came into office to reverse things that President Trump did. Well, we are going far beyond that. And Trump is signing executive orders on every area of U.S. society, U.S. policy. One reason he's doing this is because it's so hard to get legislation through the U.S. Congress. Another reason is these things are urgent. That's why so many executive orders concern the southern border. I'm sure legislation will pass to fix the southern border someday, but with such a narrow majority in the House, we can't wait for that.
Got to get it done. Let's stay on the southern border for a second. Gulf of America. Hillary Clinton nearly fell out of her chair at the inauguration. I actually look at the shoreline, and if you measure the tip of Texas all the way to the tip of Florida, we have like 2 to 1 the number of miles of shoreline that Mexico has on that Gulf. What's the psychology there? What's he aiming at? What's he trying to establish?
He's trying to promote American global leadership. And at the end of the day, as head of the executive branch, the president has the say over geographic names. He's asserting control over our government. There are boards within government, the CIA's involved, the State Department's involved, the Commerce Department's involved, but they all answer to Trump. And if the president wants to do this, it gets done.
Greenland and Canada and the Panama Canal at the Center for Security. How important is global transportation? I've been told by military experts that the Arctic is very strategic in terms of what we want to see in terms of protecting our country 30, 50 years from now. And Russia and China, I'm told, already have large plans to divvy it up and try to make hay with it. Are we late to the game, or is Donald Trump, pulling the Yoda Jedi mind thing with everybody and taking the upper hand here?
We are late to the game. We don't have enough icebreakers. If a Northwest Passage above northern Canada actually turns out, if global warming continues, which I'm not sure we know that's going to be the case, there could be a new trade route that would go from Europe across northern Canada through the Bering Strait. But a bigger issue is the status of Greenland long term. Greenland has enormous mineral wealth, energy wealth. It only has 50,000 residents. Those residents could one day choose to align the country unfriendly with the United States. There's no reason for that. Those 50,000 people could be very wealthy. They could be given opportunities as U.S. citizens in some type of an affiliation with the United States to have much better lives than they'll ever have with Denmark. I think Trump will make them an offer they can't refuse.
I've seen the math. If we offer each citizen $1 million, we spend less than we've spent in Ukraine, and and we get Greenland. Like, how could that be bad?
I think that's right. And I mean, obviously, Denmark is angry because they've had control of Greenland for hundreds of years. Well, that's not a reason they should hold this giant island that is part of North America and has such enormous strategic importance for the United States.
Yeah, well, I've known too many Danes. They get mad for a while, then they go back to being stoic for long term. So I think we'd survive that. Anyway, Fred Fleitz, thank you for all the hard work, and thanks for stopping by.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. It's That Kevin Show. A number of years ago, my next guest, we started telling you a little bit about her story. Actually, Kelsey Bowler was the one that brought her story first to our attention. But Prisha Mosley rejoins us. We were last together in Manhattan on a night when they were telling stories, the stories of detransitioning in America. And Prisha, you put out on, welcome back, by the way, and you put out on social media this week that you were very happy with one of the executive orders that President Trump has signed. Tell us why and relate it to how it fits your story.
Yeah, so I'm someone who was transitioned starting as a minor. I went to my doctors expressing trauma and trauma responses and an eating disorder. But when I said that I felt like a boy, all medical ethics just went to the side, and I was treated for quote unquote gender dysphoria with drugs, chemicals, and surgery. And this makes no sense for someone suffering with mental distress. This executive order addresses that. It stops providers from taking the saddest and most vulnerable of children who believe that they were born wrong and stops them from agreeing with that child and prescribing chemicals and surgery.
And he signed, I think it's 2 orders along this line, one addressing the chemicals and one addressing the actual surgeries. I think a lot of people are confused, Prisha, in the idea that they would think that these types of things would not be legal for children under the age of 18 or able to have their own conscious decision being made. But it has. It's happened in states. It happened to you. It's happened in other places. And sometimes states trying to go around the parents, not even letting the parents have a say in it.
Yeah, it's awful. It's because of the manipulative language of activists. They say gender affirming care is life-saving care. And that's one of the reasons I actually like the name of the executive order. He calls it mutilation and chemical harm of children. It's not gender affirming care. There's no type of therapy where you affirm your hatred of yourself. But that's exactly what people who call themselves experts in the field are doing. They are affirming a child's hatred of themselves and doing so with chemicals and surgery. And it's happening a lot.
4 years ago, you had an administration that came in and kind of poured gas on that whole issue. It was like a fire that was already starting to roar, but they just exploded it across our country. Prisha, tell us a little bit about the journey that you took and what made you decide to stop the transition and to wish to not transition.
I really believed when I was transitioning, I believed my doctors. I believed that I was really going to undergo an actual sex change and transform into a boy who had never been hurt, who had never been traumatized, and who was safe. And yeah, you're right about the old administration really casting fuel on that fire. Just they helped spread the lies. There's nothing life-saving about giving surgery and drugs to a child. We've already tried to remove the body parts of women who who are distressed, calling them hysterical and removing their uteruses in a hysterectomy. We know it doesn't work.
What you really needed, and what I've learned from working with Kelsey all this time, is that what a lot of people need that are in those situations as young people is not treatment for gender dysphoria, but actually treatment for underlying psychological trauma and issues that they are facing. Is it your belief that the overwhelming number of children, if they were to receive the actual diagnosis and care for what they are really in need of, that this discussion of gender dysphoria would in many ways kind of dry up?
Absolutely. Gender dysphoria and the treatment of it is a scapegoat for clinicians who don't want to work on hard cases. They don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to work through trauma or family things or things going on at school or actual mental illness. They just want to affirm and shut a patient up by drugging them and making them temporarily happy with surgery.
What happened to you when you began to address the underlying issues? How did your life begin to change? Did you feel hope when you actually turned to what the problem was?
Yeah, I mean, it made an incredible difference. I mean, the clarity came at a high cost. I realized that my doctors had lied to me and that the whole thing was a scam, a lie, and fraud. But I gained a lot too. I'm able to have deeper and more personal relationships because I'm being honest with myself and others. I'm able to have a better relationship with myself because I can face myself and I'm not hiding behind a wall of trauma and a mask of a man that I never transformed into.
The idea that you can just fix something with a surgery and some pills has been pretty thoroughly debunked. You talked about Europe and how it's not. We're kind of late on the detransition bandwagon. If you look globally, America's kind of running behind the tide there. But it takes more than executive orders. What ultimately would you like to see done by way of laws created to protect kids that were in your situation?
I would like to see Congress take these bills and make them law. I would like to see detransitioners able to sue and hold their providers accountable. And I would like there to be accountability for people who have called themselves professionals and then done this to children who just needed help. There needs to be accountability. It's not right. Crimes have been committed.
And why do you use that word in particular? I think I know, but I just want my viewers and listeners to hear it.
Children can't consent. It's perverse to change a child in a way they can't understand, to change someone's future before they're able to grasp who and what they are, to take away body parts that they haven't been truly introduced to because they're too young. It's barbaric. And I had no chance to know better when I was young and I wasn't well and I was in the throes of distress, but my doctors knew better and they made money off of my distress anyway.
How old were you when you started down the journey of transitioning?
The medicalization started at 16.
Wow. Yeah, you hardly know what you think at 16. I mean, and there's a reason that we don't give 16-year-olds drinking privileges and driving privileges in a lot of states. And there's a lot of things that we restrict from people that young. Fully understanding one's anatomy and biology at that point, especially sexual desire and the proclivity to create and everything else. I just don't think that a child that young is in the age to know.
Not to mention, it's normal to not want to breastfeed when you're 16 years old or 17 or even 18 or 19 or maybe 20. You know, that is really something for an older adult and a woman. It's normal to be disgusted by that idea as a teenager. It really is. It's normal and it's okay. It doesn't mean that you need to have your breasts removed.
Prisha Mosley, everyone, and you can find out more of her story at iwf.org.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Did you just open a clean dishwasher? Remember, if you open a clean dishwasher, it's your job to empty it. Where did he go? I thought he came into the pantry. Where is he?
somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, breaking news with Frank Morano. A touch of wellness with Anne Banyra. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, The Babylon Bee and the Holderness Family. And Lainey Wilson for the fourth year in a row in the Spotlight. And now, live from Times Square, a man who's been nothing but snooty and nearly impossible to deal with since President Trump's personal proclamation to him. Here's the
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. As President Trump has been able to make significant gains in his agenda since taking office, the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus has accused the president of attempting to purge non-white workers. Yvette Clarke went so far as to accuse the president of addressing the nation with white supremacist ideologies on the tail of the crash in the Dulles Airport, Potomac River area. In doing so, she says he wishes to purge America's non-white workers. Trump speculated in his press statement the day of the crash as to whether DEI played a role in Biden's nominees for highly skilled positions like the FAA administrator.
You ever flown a plane?
Thank you for the question, Senator. No, I have never flown a plane.
So you weren't a military pilot or a commercial airline pilot?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for an airline?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked as an air traffic controller?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for a company that manufactures airplanes?
No, Senator.
Have you ever worked for a company that fixes airplanes?
No, Senator.
Why would anybody come to that kind of strange conclusion? Two supposed illegal migrants are now in custody after authorities have received reports of a man's dead body being found inside a Delaware home. Assignment Desk Weekend has learned, however, that the man only appeared to most people to be, in the words of the great cinematic masterpiece, only mostly dead. Assignment Desk Weekend would also like to point out that there's an astounding resemblance of the two persons now in custody. Sadly, President Biden had been so consumed with pardoning his own family in the final moments of his presidency before leaving office that he forgot to pardon his former mentor and sidekick. The CEO of Meta, seen here attempting to use Meta's new shiny product, the X-ray glasses that work particularly well in the House of Representatives. He's using them to stare in the direction of Jeff Bezos's wife. Mark Zuckerberg released a statement on Friday complaining that all of the top secret information he brings to the Facebook board meetings somehow gets leaked to the press. Assignment Desk Weekend has learned that Zuckerberg has been advised to maybe refrain from holding top secret meetings on Facebook's open chat feature until the solution is found. And we know that because we heard him be advised yesterday while on Facebook's open chat. And finally, huge congratulations to Fox News' Harris Faulkner, Emily Compagno, and Kayleigh McEnany. for the cable news' show called Outnumbered. It finally beat a show called The View in daytime ratings. When asked the secret sauce that has made the Fox News staple such a success, Assignment Desk Weekend has learned that Faulkner simply replied, "That's easy. More truth, fewer lies." Assignment Desk Weekend has asked for a response, but thus far has not received one from the show that features the shrews. We mean the women of The View. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Captain McCullough.
What, buddy? How you doing? What you watching, pal?
Percy Penguin and his friend Peter Penguin are going to the zoo. Isn't it nice to have friends?
It sure is.
Hello, Peter. Would you like to go to the zoo? Yes, Percy. Let's go to the zoo.
But Percy and Peter Penguin have a big penguin problem.
I know. What is it?
They fail to ask each other's pronouns and now risk misgendering each other. Personal pronouns are paramount.
This show's totally woke.
Politeness.
The penguins have pronouns.
Percy walked in.
And by the way, you know what? If they're in penguin world when they go to the zoo, are there other penguins behind the cages?
They found.
Or is it more like, animals like giraffes and things like that? Or is it humans? Is it like reverse polarity and like the penguins are going there watching humans? Like that's like, okay, you know what? The important part is that this is woke. This is woke nonsense.
I'm so tired of this. Is there anything that Wesson can actually watch?
Well, we have 7 streaming services and 113 channels, so there's got to be something that we can watch.
Ooh, I know. There was this Facebook mom group, and they were talking about this show that sounded kind of interesting.
Sometimes I feel sad because people make fun of me for being the Asian.
Why do they have to have races? They're puppets.
Nice. We should all love each other.
They're all part of the same race. They're part of the puppet race.
Whether we're Asian or normal.
I can't believe a group of moms on the internet were wrong. What else is there?
Hi, friends. I'm Miss Melanie. Let's learn together. Today we're going to learn about shapes and colors.
This looks great.
And we're also going to learn about how climate change is going to kill us all.
Oh, okay.
Climate change. Climate change.
Okay, how does this work? It's not working. It's not working.
Climate change.
All right.
Hi, Purple Cat. Would you like to eat at my restaurant?
Okay, Orange Dog.
And you don't have to pay because capitalism is evil and making people pay for things is exploitation.
Definitely not.
Hey kids, I can transform into a car, but did you know you can transform into a different gender?
No! Come on! No, you can't!
Actually, the most offensive thing about this is the lack of creative vision.
Guess who? Now with all 437 genders.
Do I have your consent to kiss you?
Can you help me follow fashions?
Be like that.
Yeah.
All crops are down talk masculinity.
That's it!
Oh no.
No more Hollywood garbage in this house.
I agree. But what can he watch then?
Just have to make it ourselves.
Okay. Wait, what do you mean by that? Okay, Wesson, get ready to watch your own special show.
Well, hello there, Daddy Rabbit.
Hello, Mother Rabbit.
Would you like a delicious carrot?
Yes, I will, because I'm a rabbit and I want to eat carrots.
Oh, honey, I think we scarred him. He's probably never going to want to watch anything ever again.
Mission accomplished. So what do you want to watch?
How about the puppets?
The Asian ones?
Yeah.
All right.
wasn't so bad. Oh, I got one more. Do you want
one? Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Everything at thatkevinshow.com. Socials, email. You want to find me, you look me up middle of the night, thatkevinshow.com. TV, podcasts, everything's there. You can find it. Please go and do so. I am very honored to have my next guest joining us, not just because I think he's a fascinating human being, and I don't find very many people that fascinating, but I also consider him a friend, and he has had the temerity to put his foot on the line and say, I'm about to put my name forward to go serve the public in a very public way. He wants to be the next city councilman from the Grand Island of Staten. Frank Morano, welcome back to That Kevin Show.
Kevin, it's great to be here. Thanks for those kind words. And I'm diving in head first. I'm excited about this. I'm pretty energized by this. And there's a big buzz on Staten Island and around the country about the changes that have been happening, not only in the country itself, but within the conservative movement, within populist circles. And I think you're seeing a lot of unusual, unlikely coalitions come together that you never would have seen on the same side of certain issues. And I'd like to do what I can locally to further that ball in the same direction.
That's a very interesting basis for your run, and I think you're going to. I think a lot of people are going to be kind of surprised when they hear this for the first time. In fact, I mentioned it to someone that you know quite well, that when you were working at our radio stations was an advertiser, and I said, "Did you hear? Frank's going to put his foot forward for the Borelli seat." And the answer, the response, I did not expect this, but they were like, why in the world would he do that? And I think that you're right. And I think you're even seeing a microcosm of that unusual kind of day possibility opening up, even with the way Mayor Adams has pivoted on some of his positions on some of the issues down the stretch. So let me start with maybe a tougher question. And I don't know if you're running as a Republican or an independent, but either one, you're going to be in the much greater minority than what the Democrats hold in that body. How do you strategize difference making in the environment that you're wanting to serve in?
Yeah, such a good question. Look, this isn't a nonpartisan election, so there's no party label. You run with a made-up party label, but I am intending, after the special election in April, to run in the June primary and in the fall general election as a Republican. But honestly, this is one area where I think Joe Borelli, who currently holds the seat, has done a great job, which is, look, you're never going to get the city council to adopt a resolution that says every illegal alien should be deported. That's never going to happen. But what Joe's been able to do is find common ground on issue after issue that, guess what? The constituents of a progressive council member from Queens or Brooklyn, they're just as concerned about it as the constituents of a conservative from Staten Island. Two issues that come to mind are, one, property taxes. Why is someone with a modest 1 or 2 family home on Staten Island paying more in property taxes than Bill de Blasio's Park Slope, $1.5 million brownstone? It just doesn't make sense. Now, everybody recognizes that. And I don't mean to pick on Bill de Blasio, but it just is a depiction of how unfair the property tax system is and how much it's in need of a reevaluation and a rejiggering. That's something progressives are all in favor of. Yeah. The other issue is New York City retiree health care. We have cops, firefighters, sanitation workers, teachers, that they decided to work for the city and pass up higher income elsewhere in many cases because they understood that they were going to get get a certain amount of their health care benefits paid for in retirement. Well, Mayor Adams and Mayor de Blasio have decided, well, you screwed up. You trusted us. And they're trying to pull the rug out from underneath the retirees. That's an issue where you see the progressives and the what they call the Common Sense Caucus, which is sort of a moderate and conservative bipartisan entity in the city council, on the same page on. Now, look, there are some issues with respect to policing that I'm never going to be on the same side as somebody like Tiffany Caban from Queens or Youssef Salam from Manhattan. But that's okay. Even if I'm in the minority, I'm going to give voice to the issues that my constituents are concerned about. And I'm going to put on the record and use the bully pulpit of the office why Staten Islanders feel neglected by City Hall in instance after instance. And I'm going to fight loudly, even if it's a losing fight, for why I'm hopefully going to be sent there.
Towards the end of Borelli's service, and he's done such an admirable job for where he's been and what he could do, and I truly appreciate all that he's done. But in that, towards the end, there have been multiple reverberations of maybe Staten Island floating the idea of seceding from the city. Where does Frank Morano stand if the city doesn't respond to your desire to improve things, particularly for your constituents that would be electing you? Where would you stand on a potential secession?
Look, ultimately, I think Staten Islanders should be able to control their own fate, right? If Staten Islanders, vote 70%, 75% in favor of municipal independence, there's going to be no greater advocate and champion of municipal independence than me. And I would say the same thing about, by the way, Venice or Scotland or any community. I don't think any community should be forced, or Greenland for that matter. I don't think any community should be forced to be a part of an entity that it doesn't want to be a part of. So I support Staten Islanders' right of self-determination. I have some questions about the logistics of how we would pay for services, and also the things on Staten Island that New York City owns 80% of. I'm thinking the firehouses, the police stations, the schools. I'm concerned about logistically how that would work. But here's what I am in favor of, and this is what I think Joe has done effectively, as have people like State Senator Andrew Lanza and others, is let's use the issue of secession to get more control over our own fate on Staten Island. Okay. Staten Island, for instance, you can't make a right turn on red. This is the only place, New York City is the only place in the world where that's the case. So, but we really should have that right turn on red. Why can't we determine that for ourselves? Same thing with parking regulations. We have no control over our own parking regulations. That's dictated to us from a bureaucrat in City Hall. Same thing with sanitation regulations. I got fined not long ago because I put my trash out the same time I have done for the last 4 years, which was in the afternoon, but they instituted a new regulation that you're not able to put it out before 8:30 because of rats. Now, that may make sense in Crown Heights or in certain neighborhoods in Manhattan. There has never been a rat on my block ever. So why should I have to play by the same, except for some mafia people that are a little too verbose? Why should I have to play by the same playbook as what Manhattan should be? Staten Islanders should get to control our own fate. So I'm not sure the practicalities of secession, but let's use secession as a cudgel to get more control over our own decision making.
It's like tariffs.
Exactly.
It's effective.
Exactly.
And I don't think you'd have to pay every resident of Staten Island $1 million to get him to get him to vote for it. We might have to do that for Greenland. We could spend less money than we spend in Ukraine by giving everyone in Greenland $1 million. We're not going to have to do that in Staten Island. There's too much good. And by the way, friends, if you're listening, he's for early trash takeout rights. He's for right turns. How can you go wrong with Frank Morano being your city councilman?
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. Says so on the mug. Anyway, glad to have you with us. You know, besides looking at the news and trying to make my way through the crazy that is the headlines every day, we also try to do practical sides of life with the things that I broadcast about. And one of those areas is health and wellness. And we talk to surgeons and nutritionists and primary care physicians and hospital attendants. We've talked to everybody along that spectrum. But one of the areas that we also talk about is fitness, and some of the ways that we keep ourselves fit helps prevent disease and depression and a whole bunch of other things that can impact our health in a very significant way. And one of the people that I've had a lot of fun with on the air over the years, but has not been with us lately, is Anne Banyra. She's a yoga instructor. She's a Pilates instructor. She boxes. She runs. I don't know what all you do, Anne, but welcome back. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
It's the first of the year, sort of. We kind of got there. We're not really at the first of the year, but we're not out of the first month yet. And there's probably people that have already given up on their fitness goals for 2025. And I thought it would be a good time for you and I to chat about all the things. And even though you're into fitness and stuff, a lot of times we talk more about the intellectual and mental kind of side of all of this. So I was curious what you've been up to, what you've been thinking about, and do you have something for us here as we're trying to make our way into 25, and we want to be consistent. We want to do better. What are your thoughts on where we are?
Yeah, there's always that swing of January becomes like go hard and I'm going to, like you said, get better. And it's always such great intention. And that's really the important part to focus on is I do have the intention. I do have that self-awareness that there's something that I want to achieve. And all that is so good. It tapers off. Usually around March, the numbers go down a little bit.
You've made it all the way to March?
I'm being generous. February, March, as far as like class participation, you can see it start going down. But that's not the end of it. You know, it's again, just recognizing that there is something that you want to improve. A lot of people, we all hear this and we all know it's true, but a lot of people go in with too much expectation on themselves. And I think what I've been thinking about within this lately is there is a huge component to self-awareness and what you can knowingly know about yourself, and those small implemental changes towards that is important. And a lot of self-reflection. And what I've been thinking about lately within that self-reflection is when you notice you're giving too much away, and that could be personally, professionally, friendships. I mean, even things in the household, like I can't do this much laundry, something like that. Off the top.
You must have teenagers.
Yeah. I can't actually be doing this much laundry, but it takes a lot of all of these things, whether it's fitness or laundry. This is why we tend to circle back to mental health, because it's mental health work, and that discovery of catching when you're giving away too much of yourself and not feeding yourself.
Right.
And well, that's the catch.
Having said that, I want to kind of drill down a little bit. When we were talking off the air, you talk about recognizing being out of alignment.
Yes.
Now, you can't fix something until you know that it's broken. And we may have some sort of idea that something's broken, but we don't necessarily know how to go look for it or understand how it got broken. And I love the word alignment. It makes me think of cars and tires. You can drive on badly aligned tires for a long way. But what happens when you do that is the tread wears completely wrong. And at some point you run the risk of a complete blowout, which could be a disastrous wreck and other things if you don't ever know that alignment is off. I think it's very similar to life, is it not?
Yeah. And I love that car analogy because in the end, if you keep going, what's going to happen is you end up costing more time, more money, more aggravation. And it's the same thing in turn. So I'm talking about, that self-awareness of alignment. And it could start subtle, a few bad days. But really, the subtle things are the ones to kind of recognize, we come to a point where it's like, okay, no more, I have to change something. And then learn from that spot and find the little subtle clues.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Final few minutes with my very good friend Anne Banyra, fitness instructor, Pilates instructor, yoga instructor. She does box too. I have it on good authority. And Anne, we've been talking about the mind. We're in the early part of the year. We want to do the year well. I don't think there's a human being that wakes up and goes, how can I not flourish today? I just don't think we may have a lot of junk that gets in our way and prevents us from flourishing, but I don't think it's in our hearts to not want to. The question is, can we overcome the obstacles, sometimes the fears that are within us, and sometimes it's the problems of other people that can roll up into what we may set out as a great plan for ourselves, and then it doesn't exactly work out that way. So how do you balance people, my own expectations and fears? Once I've said I'm out of alignment, I've done the inventory, I know where I need to focus and kind of what I need to do, but now I got to have the courage to do it, and I've got to do it sometimes in the face of others when they want to pull at me too. So what's your best advice in those scenarios?
I have to remind myself this all the time. It is so hard for me to speak up for myself. It is so hard for me. And I think most people are in the same boat. I'm actually really envious of people that, maybe envy isn't the right word. It gives me inspiration when someone speaks up for what they want. And it reminds me of looking at it from the other side. Well, if that gives me inspiration, then why am I not doing that for myself? Because in reality, if you speak up for yourself and say what your needs are, it's actually like a trust between people. Like, okay, I know where they stand. So there's also, like you said, other people in your life. I live in a very busy household. I have 4 kids. They need a lot from me. But I also want to show them that there's times you just have to say no. Like, I cannot do that today. And teach them the lessons as well that, again, speaking up for yourself. I've had a long day. I cannot do any more for anybody today. And that's okay. Does that?
I just hear moms all across the country going, yeah, you go, girl.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
You said earlier, can there be any more laundry? Yeah. I see it with my lovely bride. We've only got 3 kids, but she goes hard, and but she has been able to balance some of that with a more physically fit kind of focus to some of her life. I think spiritual stuff also plays heavily into this, and this is why I think that if someone does not have a relationship with God in some way, I think there's resources there to help me also focus on some of this stuff and how to, because you don't want to ultimately live a life that's like just for myself.
Right.
And I don't, all the rest of you can go to where, because that doesn't help me either. Like you were talking about the balance, and it's understanding where that balance is for me, so that I can then best be equipped to love and serve my kids, so that I can best be equipped to love and serve my bride or whoever. Like, I want to be healthy, not just to be a selfishly healthy person, but so that I can be everything that God made me to be, and to help them flourish as well. I go back to the idea of human flourishing. I really think it's an important part of why we were made. And I think we all have purposes to achieve, but if we don't get past some of the junk that gets in the way, then we never get to that point, and we miss out on the joy of what that ultimately can look like and how that can be created. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes all the sense. My mind's going in a million different directions. You said it in like such a good way. You had me think of a lot of different things, which is why we talk like this. And that's like, the more we talk about things like this, other people are going to hear what they need to hear.
Right.
And I feel like that to me is a big spiritual practice, like hearing whatever you hear, whatever you take out of this, whatever plants, that's that little seed. And
even to some degree, self-awareness isn't as much a talent as it is a skill that has to be developed.
Yeah, it's a muscle, right?
To hear your body. Like, I remember when I first started taking yoga, our friend Lucy, who is the head yogi at the Lifetime where we go, she would talk about listening to your body. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I came out of a high school athletic background, and guys are tough and we tough it out and all the rest of that. Well, that's not necessarily good. Like, if you're straining a muscle, you shouldn't keep straining the muscle. Like, that's bad. You're gonna have counterproductive health because you were the tough guy. So understanding and hearing that, and I've gotten better at that over time. Like, and maybe I'm just getting so old that my body's just yelling at me all the time now. But you gotta be able to do that. But that requires practice, and I think being self-aware of your mental and emotional health takes practice as well.
A lot, and I've gone through the same experience with yoga, where I first started hearing that, and at first it sounds like, well, there's the obvious: I hurt my back, I hurt my knee. But then you get, like you said, you refine the skill, you build this muscle to noticing small things like my throat. And I don't mean a sore throat. I mean like a little sensation here, like that's a block of communication. When your chest hurts, oh, that's because, another emotion is here. Our body is amazing. It's this complicated system that gives us warnings all the time, little subtle warnings. If your stomach hurts all the time, if your feet, it's trying to tell you something, and it's a built skill. It takes a while.
Well, I think when you're young, you ignore a lot of it just because you have adrenaline and you're on fire and just life is happening and everything's good. But I am noticing that as I get older, and even my heart changes. Like, I want different things now than I did even 10 years ago. Yeah. I want more for my kids. I want to do more for my kids. I want to be more involved in their life. I want to make sure that I leave them a legacy. I want to make sure, I'm not talking about financially. I would love to be able to do that. But I want to leave them a legacy of a father who cared about them and was involved in their lives. And they have that strength to draw upon, when they're parents someday. Because I hear things my parents said to me in my head all the time. But anyway, all right. Well, Jane Ann, this has been very helpful. And friends, if you would like to re-listen to this, just go to the podcast section of any of your favorite aggregators and look for That Kevin Show. Jane Anne Banyra, her last name is spelled Banyra, but look for Jane Ann, and we'll have this up there, and you can download it and re-listen again and again. But Jane Ann, come back and see us again. We appreciate it.
I'd love to.